as I'm spending all this extra time outside each day, of coming into contact with my views about nature, which have tended towards a more animist lens where I see and feel personhood in each place and each being. I think in the past you've pointed to some of the unskillfulness in my views of nature. So I'd like you to speak about, what are skillful ways to relate to nature where I'm not. I'm not sure if I should say more.
What are you referring to when you say, I've pointed out your unskillful ways of looking at nature?
Yeah, in that I'm referring to the incredible grief I feel for the destruction of nature. The attachment I feel to it being treated in a particular way, the world looking a particular way.
We're looking a particular way?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is an interesting point. So, on the one hand, it is important to allow ourselves to grieve. To have the intent to resolve suffering. I suppose you could call that attachment if you wanted, but in general we don't see compassion as attachment. You can define these terms as you wish, but it isn't normal to define attachment as compassion. There is considered to be valid desire. The Buddha recommends having desire, zeal, enthusiasm, having a clear goal and striving to achieve it. These are all very much recommended in the sutras. So, and then certainly in the Mahayana texts you have compassion throughout. So, if you have compassion, you don't want nature to be destroyed, you don't want how do you say? You said you want things to look a certain way. If there's a military group killing your family, you could say, I don't want them to die because I want it to look a certain way. But that seems a little artificial, to be honest. You have compassion. You want to be of service. You want to you want to care for all beings, help all beings to flourish. So I think the first thing is, of course it makes your life hard, but you and I know that. Your life is hard because you struggle with this, but that's an important struggle. I recommend to people that they grieve, that they care, that they have compassion for all beings. So you have that, and therefore your life is hard. But it's better. You have a better life than most people. You wouldn't go back if you had the choice. And even though you could say some people wouldn't want your life, if that makes sense. So you wouldn't want their life. And when I said you wouldn't go back, you wouldn't want their life. And you could say, well, they wouldn't want your life. So that's just subjective. But it actually isn't subjective because you understand their life. You know their life. They don't know what your life is. They can't imagine your experience. You know exactly their experience, and you're making an intelligent decision and choosing the better path. Better for you, better for the world. The one you've chosen is preferable for you and the world. So it really isn't just some people like this and some people like that. Those people are ignorant regarding the happiness the kind of happiness that you experience each day. You know exactly the kind of happiness that they experience each day, and you've chosen this with knowledge, not ignorance. So, on the one hand, it's important to validate your experience, even though your life is therefore quite challenging. But there are two things that we might point out, and both require a great deal of contemplation. If you wish, I invite you to explore it. You don't have to. You can say that's interesting, maybe some other time, or it may not resonate with you. But two other points that are worth looking at closely. One is so Shinzen often says that it's very good to care, say, about nature. But don't let your happiness be dependent upon protecting nature. This is something of a radical statement. So so let's put it the other way, okay? Because for someone like you who cares about nature this much, I want to make sure that everybody is following along with the conversation. You should care about your family, your parents, your siblings, maybe your spouse and children. But you shouldn't let your happiness depend upon their flourishing. Maybe they're being murdered. You shouldn't let your happiness depend upon your ability to protect them from being killed. I just want to be sure everybody's following along with the issue that Kama is bringing up. This isn't just some philosophical thing. So what is he talking about? This is something to contemplate. Is that really an intelligent thing to say? I would say that there's something in what he's saying that's extremely intelligent, that's very wise, and in fact makes us more capable of protecting our families and all living beings. That's an important point. We actually become better at it, which is what we want to be. In the end, we want to be effective. And so there's a useful side, but we should still, is it right? Is it correct? So I'd just like to offer that. Yes, you should care, you should have compassion, but you shouldn't let your happiness depend upon the consequences of your compassion. Meaning, you might not succeed at this. Does that mean you won't be as happy? Most of us try to use the threat of that suffering as a motivational tool. Yes, so I care about this, that means I need it to be this way. If it's not that way, one of the reasons I'm going to work to succeed is that I'm so afraid of the suffering that will come due to this attachment to making things be this way. If I get it that way, I'll be happy. If I don't, I won't. Therefore, I'm motivated. And one of the things to look at is, well, let's say that my happiness weren't dependent on that. Let's just say that my happiness weren't dependent on that. Why would I be motivated then? And so and the only reason then is compassion. Then it's because I'm going to suffer unless I help those people is actually still a selfish motivation. So let's say that I wouldn't suffer even if they were murdered. You see, this is either inconceivable compassion that would motivate us, or it's that we are becoming a psychopath. It's that we're becoming insane and evil. So it's very important that we look at this closely. Is this psychopathy? or the path of the Bodhisattva. If we don't examine it closely, we're missing the depth that's being offered here. Again, Shinzen, I was helping Shinzen out. One point, I was helping him with he was communicating with one of his students, and they said, I've gotten back to, I finished the retreat, I've gotten home, and I'm sorry to say that I see that everyone in my life is insane, and I don't know what to do about it. And he said, well, I want to affirm that yes, everyone in your life is insane. It's good that you know that now. But I'd just like to say, the way you know, but the question is then, are you insane? So they're all insane, yes, but are you insane is the important question for you to ask. And this is the test that will allow you to know if you're insane. If their insanity causes you suffering, you're insane. Again, we have to ask, is it just that we're apathetic, we don't care? Or is it that there's a wisdom, a compassion greater than all of these circumstances? It's very important that we look at this closely. So that's the first point. The second point is that we have compassion. We want this world to be protected. But we also acknowledge something that you and I have discussed, that in some strange way it's taught that mind is chief. Somehow it's taught that mind is chief. Mind is the forerunner. Mind is what we're looking at here. How does this apply to mind? And in that way, we don't. So let's say that people are destroying nature, murdering our family, whatever it is. Part of the problem is the suffering of the people the beings who are being killed. Part of the problem is that now these beings who are killing are going to suffer terribly. They actually will suffer more than the people who are being killed. This is why Peace Pilgrim could say that if someone was going to kill her unless she killed them, that of course she would let them kill her, because all they would do is destroy this garment of clay, which is just going to be destroyed soon enough anyway. But if she were to kill them, then she would be injuring her soul. To injure a physical body, well, not a big deal, it's how it goes. It's inherently injured. It's just going to fall away, die anyway. But to have the intention to kill, that injures one's soul, you could say. That produces consequences that are far more significant than the mere destruction of a body. So that's one way to approach it. And if we apply that to the situation, people are destroying nature, we consider that intent, that mind. It's the mind of greed, of hatred, of ignorance that's the problem. It's the lack of experience of sacred relationship that's the problem. Something will happen, something else will happen. All of this, yes, will be destroyed, but death isn't the problem. That the people die isn't the problem. That the people kill is the problem. This we have to be very clear on, because if we're clear on that, if we see that, then we're in a position to bring forth the appropriate mind in this moment. We bring that forth, the mind of love, the mind of awareness. And we spread that, and we want to find ways of spreading that. If we look at it this way, then we see that the challenge is, but how is it exactly that this mind of grieving and the mind of love, compassion, the joy of sacred relationship, how can all of that be compatible? And in fact, it is compatible. It's completely compatible. But we may need time to explore how it's compatible, to know that. In that way, we're empowered in this moment. We then live that out as you are and produce, not just for ourselves, but for a community, the thriving of such a loving and caring mind. Which, talking about Peace Pilgrim, because we both have been impacted by her life, but, and I say it often, but as you know, a community like this is what she originally set out to be a part of. And she never was. That never happened in her life. And so we're different from her. She did things that we didn't do, and we're going to do things that she didn't do. And one of those things is create a community. The community that we would hope, if she walked along Route 100 and found us, that she would say, oh, this is the one that I was looking for all my life. That's what we're hoping to create here. And so we create it, but we create it out of that seed of initially, what is the mind that is free from, that resolves these problems? How is that created as a group to create a culture that spreads and we hope ultimately does save the world? But in that way, we're empowered in this moment, and we have a path forward. It doesn't mean that there's no grieving. It doesn't mean that there's no sadness, not by any means. It means that we directly experience ourselves as the solution. We are that which is solving the problem. Because mind is causing the problem, mind solves the problem, and we know how to bring forth the appropriate mind. There's an exhilaration, an excitement in that, which, again, we should look at very closely. I feel that a lot of us here don't empower ourselves to do that. And so we go through a lot of discomfort. Some of our self-hatred is, sorry to be so blunt about this, but some of our self-hatred is due to the fact that we have just been trained to hate ourselves. We have to work with that. It's been a long indoctrination period. We've practiced that a lot. We have to deal with that habit. But what makes it much harder is that some of our self-hatred, I'm sorry, I know this is going to be hard to hear. Get ready. But some of it is, maybe self-hatred isn't the most skillful way to deal with it, but some of it is based on a very reasonable critique of ourselves. If we're ashamed, there may be something that we are ashamed of. And when we know how to bring forth this mind and experience ourselves moment after moment as living the solution, then that part of the shame has no place to stand. We directly experience this moment, this effort right now as solving the problem, as being in harmony with nature, our mind right now is in harmony with this life coursing through the earth. We know that is true. We are not in conflict. We experience that harmony, and we experience the resolution of that which is out of harmony due to its interaction with us. That's marvelous. That is empowering, exhilarating, energizing, and it allows us to then face even more difficult problems. So give yourself the chance to solve, not about this is the thing that's going to happen. I envision the way the world should be and I'm going to get the world to be that way. It's that I right now am participating in the solution right now, and I experience it that way. How is that done? Most importantly, by completely dropping the self-centered nature. Completely, in this moment, dropping it. Not experiencing this as me, you, the world, myself. That completely dropped. Then, because we have cut that off, our mind's open, and we experience the mind that right now is harmonious and is now solving these problems. Let that also feed you. So we have to stop here. We don't even have time for you to reply. I'm sorry, but here we are. And again, a great deal has been said. We've looked at it from a number of different angles. So this is something to contemplate. And like everything else we do, no need to rush that process. And good news, there's no need to waste time. No need to wait to look at this. So don't hesitate, don't wait, but don't force either. In this way, the aspect of the teaching that resonates in us will be found.